What is going on in Toronto right now? Like seriously, somebody has to slow this man down because John Chayka is moving at a speed that no one in the NHL saw coming, and the Toronto Maple Leafs fanbase is absolutely losing their minds right now, and honestly, they have every right to, because what we have witnessed over the past several weeks has been nothing short of a total organizational transformation, and it is not slowing down. Not even a little bit. So if you are a Leafs fan, strap in because this video is going to break down everything that has happened, what it all means, and why the rest of the NHL should genuinely be starting to get nervous about what is being built in Toronto. Let's go back to where this whole story really begins, because you cannot talk about John Chayka's moves without understanding the chaos that made them possible. The 2025-26 season was a disaster for the Maple Leafs. A painful, gut-wrenching 32-36-14 campaign under head coach Craig Berube had the organization questioning everything. Brad Treliving was relieved of his duties on March 30th. Berube was shown the door, and the Leafs ended up with the fifth worst record in the entire NHL, which, as brutal as that sounds, turned out to be the luckiest thing that ever happened to this franchise. Because that record got them into the draft lottery, and against an 8.5% chance, Toronto won the whole thing. They were getting the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NHL draft. The city went absolutely electric. Enter John Chayka. This is a man who made a name for himself as the youngest general manager in NHL history when he ran the Arizona Coyotes organization back in his 20s. He has always been seen as a forward thinker, a guy who values analytics, player development, and long-term roster construction above all else. When he was hired to replace Treliving, Leafs fans were cautiously optimistic, but nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold. Nobody. Because Chayka did not walk into the job and take his time. He sprinted. First, there was the draft. The worst-kept secret in hockey came to fruition when the Maple Leafs walked up to that podium in Buffalo at KeyBank Center. Yes, the very same arena where they drafted Auston Matthews first overall back in 2016, and selected 18-year-old Gavin McKenna from Penn State. And the moment was made even more surreal by the fact that Justin Bieber, one of the most famous Leafs fans on the planet, was the one who stepped to the mic and announced the pick. Chayka did not mince words afterward. He called McKenna an exceptional young man with tremendous talent and character, and said that every interaction the organization had with him and his family only strengthened their belief in both the player and the person. And when you look at what McKenna actually did this past season, you understand why. 51 points in just 35 games at Penn State. Before that, 129 points in 56 games in the WHL. This kid does not just put up numbers, he makes players around him better. He has that rare, elite vision and playmaking instinct that you simply cannot teach. Now imagine putting that alongside Auston Matthews in the prime of his career. Go ahead. Take a second. Let that sink in. But here is the thing about Chayka, he did not stop there. Not even close. Because while the rest of the hockey world was still processing the McKenna pick, Chayka had already started completely reshaping the rest of the roster, and the speed at which he has operated has been genuinely jaw-dropping. On the defensive side, Chayka pulled off a trade with the Philadelphia Flyers, acquiring young defenseman Emile Andre, goaltender Samuel Ersson, and a 2026 third-round pick in exchange for Joseph Wall and Simon Benoit. And then, almost immediately, he locked up Andre on a 2-year contract extension carrying a cap hit of just $1.55 million. Let that number marinate. A smart, mobile, puck-moving defenseman secured at that price while Toronto still has cap flexibility to keep swinging? Chayka himself described Andre as a smart, competitive player who helps break the puck out efficiently. A good puck mover who can join the rush and support offense. And he followed that up by saying, and this is the key part, that there is still lots of work to be done on the roster. He was only getting started. Then came the signing that really showed everyone what Chayka's overall vision actually is. On the blue line, Toronto pulled off a sign-and-trade for Darren Radish from the Tampa Bay Lightning and signed him to an 8-year deal. 8 years. That is a statement. That is a general manager saying to his fan base, to his locker room, and to the rest of the league, we are building something real here, and we are not afraid to commit to it. Radish is being described as one of the top acquisitions of this entire free agent cycle, and Toronto got him before anyone else could blink. But then came July 1st. NHL free agency opened, and Chayka turned it into an absolute masterclass. While other teams were still figuring out their plans, the Maple Leafs were already done. In the span of hours, Toronto signed Colton Sissons, Teddy Blueger, Brandon Duheim, Jack Roslovic, and Zach Maswan. They also added Nick Paul via trade from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Dennis Hildeby. 6 forwards added in one morning. And when you look at the theme connecting all of these moves, it becomes crystal clear what Chayka is doing. Every single one of those players is a defensive specialist, a heavy, responsible center or winger who kills penalties, wins puck battles, and takes the grinding two-way assignments that free up the top of the lineup to do what they do best. Think about what that means for Auston Matthews. Under Craig Berube's system, Matthews was being deployed in situations he never had to deal with before in his career. A guy who used to start roughly 70% of his shifts in the offensive zone was suddenly pushed down to around 55%. He was being asked to shoulder defensive responsibilities that took away from what makes him one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world. That system made the Leafs look harder working and grittier, but it also made Auston Matthews look slightly less like Auston Matthews. Chayka looked at that and said, no more. With Sissons, Blueger, and Paul now on this roster, none of Auston Matthews' shifts should begin in the defensive zone. None. Those guys can eat that responsibility alive. They were built for it. And what that means is that the best version of Auston Matthews, the version who scores 60 goals and changes games just by being on the ice, is coming back. And this time, he will have Gavin McKenna alongside him in the not-too-distant future. Chayka also extended his eyes to the blue line when he brought in Troy Stecher on an extension reportedly between $1 and $1.5 million after the 32-year-old defenseman quietly put together a strong 60 games averaging nearly 20 minutes of ice time, contributing 3 goals and 11 assists. These are the kinds of smart, value signings that championship rosters are built on. You do not win Stanley Cups with just the star players. You win them because your third-pair defender and your fourth-line center show up and do their jobs every single night. Chayka is building that culture from the ground up. And then there is the bigger picture piece of all of this that gets overlooked in the daily avalanche of transactions. Chayka brought in Matt Sundin, the greatest Maple Leaf of his generation, as a front office executive. When Chayka talks about their off-season plans, he always includes Sundin. These 2 men have been working together on a comprehensive plan, and what we are seeing play out day after day is not a collection of random moves. It is a coordinated, philosophically consistent blueprint. The Maple Leafs are no longer trading first-round picks at the deadline to rent a checking forward for 6 weeks. Those days are over. Chayka has fundamentally changed how this organization operates, and the results are already visible. Now, is there still work to do? Absolutely. The goaltending situation remains an open question. Anthony Stolarz is the incumbent, but durability has been a concern, and after the Leafs ranked second to last in goals allowed last season, Chayka has made it clear that if the right upgrade becomes available, he will not hesitate. Names like Sergei Bobrovsky have been floated, and with the cap space Toronto has created, it is not a fantasy. And at the same time, the organization has drafted 2 goalies in the 2026 draft and has a pipeline developing in the background. The Toronto Maple Leafs of 12 months ago were a team questioning everything. Their coach, their GM, their system, their identity. The Toronto Maple Leafs of today have the number 1 overall pick from the 2026 draft in Gavin McKenna, a first overall pick from 2016 in Auston Matthews still in his prime, a new head coach in Jim Hiller, a rebuilt bottom 6, a refreshed blue line, Matt Sundin in the building, and a general manager who operates with more clarity and conviction than anyone this franchise has had in a very long time. If that does not give you chills as a Leafs fan, check your pulse. John Chayka is just getting started, and the rest of the NHL is beginning to figure that out, whether they like it or not. Smash that like button if you are locked in on this Leafs rebuild. Drop a comment below telling me what move you think Chayka should make next, and subscribe if you are not already, because this offseason is far from over and we will be covering every single move as it happens. Let's go, Leafs Nation.